are here for round 16, Division 2, League of Europe at Belgium, home of the waffle, chocolate, and wartime neutrality. I'm QVR Killer, and I'm joined by a man who's only just arrived in the nick of time, Jake Hull. How are you, my good friend?
I'm all good, my guy. I am all good. You did miss out one specific little fact as well. Good old French fries were actually made in Belgium as well. So
I did not
the
know
French
that.
basically robbed that.
Yeah. See, this could be the start of a podcast. You just got to add in phrases like "let me blow your mind" or say stuff like that. And did you actually know, like, those sort of things that people in podcasts love to say? I feel like this has already got a podcast vibe. But let's make it an LOE related podcast, shall we? I've just seen someone's left the LOE server. Ooh, IRT Majner has been kicked by Larkin. How exciting. So, Championship, where are we at with 2 races to go? The second one, of course, Brazil next week, being a sprint race. 10 points available in the sprint. Fastest lap point is available in that as well. Ariel Felipe leads by 14 points. He kept up his streak of scoring every single round just last week, coming home in 12th. But the man on the mission is the Iraqi Lifebow in second place with 40 points back on 173. Koskapen a further point back on 172. He had a mare last week as well. He finished 10th. Man in 4th in the championship finished 11th. So first, third, and 4th in the championship, finishing 10th, 11th, and 12th, although not in that order last week. Larkin's on 137, 2 points behind. Luke, RJ's on 117. Tope on 104, and T-Brown rounds out top 8 on 100, but he hasn't raced for 2 weeks, sorry. So, where are we at in terms of the permutations? Assuming I did my maths correctly earlier, Felipe is champion because of the extra points available for the sprint in Brazil. Felipe can only just, despite the fact he's got a 14 point, he can only just win the title today. He needs to win the race with Lifebout 12th or lower and Koskapen 11th or lower. So you can say the odds of that happening are slim to nil. Or if Felipe picks up fastest lap, he needs Lifebout to be 11th or lower, and Koskapen 10th or lower. And if Lifebout gets the fastest lap and finishes inside the points, Felipe cannot win the title today. So that's where we're at with state of play. It's Belgium. It's a fun track. We've got 17 car crew. Actually feels quite sizable for this time of the season. I'm looking forward to this. D1 was a little bit chaotic. And last week, I know you enjoyed thoroughly. Was very chaotic. Was it Jeddah? So more of the same.
Hopefully, as you say, Jeddah was a very interesting race. Towards the end, it definitely kicked off. I think it was between RJ Sweeros and Larkin. As you probably also see, if people that are in a Discord saw quite a lot of stewards reports on it, it definitely kicked off towards the end. But it was fun regardless of that with the pair of them. And or with the trio of those guys. Hopefully they do provide that for this evening. But yeah, Felipe has that chance of winning the title for this evening. I'm going to be honest with you, Jake. I don't think it's happening. I think it's going to go straight to Brazil. I don't see the way that Lifebout's been so far towards the latter stages of the season. I can't see Lifebout dropping 12th unless he picks up damage and gets in some sort of collision. And even then, he did the same in Zandvoort, where he dropped it under the safety car, was at the back, and Zandvoort's not an easy track to overtake at, and he still ended up winning at the track. So yeah, I feel like Lifebout's on a bit of a run at the moment. 3 of his last 4 races, he's won the race, and in general he also picked up the fastest lap. So yeah, I'm expecting Lifebout to take this to Brazil. Not going to make it an easy challenge for Felipe whatsoever. I think the only thing that Felipe can hope for is that he probably finishes in second, if I'd have to say anything. But of course, he would like to, especially now, would like to win the race, of course. But yeah, if I had to go for anything because of what Lifebout's doing at the moment in this championship, I'd have to hope that for him that he gets second place at least, for him to have a good chance at winning this title next week.
I don't disagree with you. I think we've got a much more chance of the title lead changing hands today than we do of Felipe even extending his lead. I think there's more chance of Lifebout overhauling at 14 points, to be honest. If I'm being blunt, I know Felipe listens to the streams while he's racing, and I don't think he'd be offended by that. But I think there's more chance of that happening than Felipe extending his lead today. Lifebout is just on another level. I know Felipe was apprehensive towards Lifebout and Lifebout's pace before even that run that Lifebout's just gone on. 3 wins and a 4th place. Before that, 3 consecutive non-scores, and before that, back-to-back wins at Bahrain and Canada. So he's been sort of there winning the race, or he's not been there at all, Lifebout, this season. Felipe, on the other hand, hasn't won since China round 2, oh so long ago, way back in January. And since then, he's only picked up 2 further podiums, Imola, which he got in the stewards room, and again at Singapore, which had 5 cars eliminated at turn 5 on the first lap of that race. But let's go on board with Felipe for the first flying lap of the day. In fact, no, it's not going to be. I think who's the Ferrari speeding to? It's Reza 5, and it's in front of him on the out lap. But let's go on board with Felipe. So, longest track on the calendar, down to 2nd gear, a little bit of understeer, couldn't get the car quite turned in. You can use the curb on the exit to settle the car and just open up the corner a little bit on traction. Then Eau Rouge and Radion trickier than it should be, perhaps. The car can wash across the track away from you a little bit, particularly in the race. It opens you up to a corner cut at the top of Radion, and then down the long straight, 22 seconds of flat out driving to Le Com, 4th gear corner, 5th gear probably if you're in D1. Felipe very tentative on the traction. They're not wanting to make a mistake as he comes through Malmedy and then down the hill to this never-ending hairpin. I can't remember what it's called, its name escapes me, but then you immediately arrive at No Name, bring the car to the right, flick it in 5th gear, use all of the curb on the exit as much as you can to carry all this speed down the hill. No longer an eSports line where you see drivers cutting the lawn there, flick it into Puon. Down to 7th, I do in quali, 6th in the race as you're coming out with less speed. Oh, and that curb there didn't help Felipe, just washed him away a little bit from the first part of Lefania, but he picked up the second part nicely. You've always got to turn into Stavolo a little bit earlier than you think. Understeer is a bit of a bitch there. Second part of Stavolo takes well clear of. The rear can spit you back out unexpectedly there on occasion. And then a non-kink there as you come towards Blanchimont, another non-corner, full non-car really. And then you've got to pick your braking point from the bus stop over to the left-hand side, open up the corner as much as you can, 3rd gear, or I do it in 3rd gear anyway, keep the car on the right-hand side. Very tricky putting the power down out of here, more so than other slow corners in this game. It's a 43.3 for Felipe, only just, but we saw very low 42s in D1, screams on a 43.7. I think we're going to see pole around 2 or 3 tenths lower than that mark that Felipe set at least, and new boy aside Nova has already beaten it by 1.5 tenths.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see how Mr. Oxide Nova can do for this this evening. Yeah, I'm intrigued to see what he can do for this evening. Mr. 2nd place in the championship, or 3rd place now, shall I say, in the championship. Mr. QVR Koskappen having a bit of a boo-boo just before making his way in towards the start of Sector 3. So he's not going to have a valid lap time on the board. The other challenger, though, Mr. Lifebout, jumping up ahead of Felipe up into 2nd position. I feel like Nova could play a little bit of a fiddle in this championship with Lifebout, Felipe and Koskappen already, you know, showing his early signs of not dominance, but his early signs of greatness in Division 2 for this evening. So he's sitting on pole with his first lap in Division 2 for the season. Of course, it is the second to last round of the season, but of course there's technically still 3 qualifyings left to go because you've got the one shot for next week, you've got this qualifying session, and technically the sprint does count as a qualifying, but it is a race, if that makes any more sense. But yeah, Nova, he's still got opportunities of getting pole for this race and of course the other 2 races next week. Rex up into 5th with a 43.496. Miami came across the line, I think, to actually start his proper lap. I think he just must have made a mistake on his first one. So he's done a 202.509. A lot of guys are out on laps at the moment. Tope's just come up. El Rouge and Radion is making his way down the Kemmel straight, as well as Brent also just coming towards the end of the first sector, 29.9 for him and a 29.8 for Tope. So a lot of these guys are going to be running quite low down or quite low wing setups, as Brent has actually decided to take a trip around into the grass after the chicane. But yeah, a lot of these guys are going to be running quite low wing setups, and I think it's kind of going to show in the second sector who's going to be the quicker one in the second sector, meaning who's going to be the one having a little bit of higher wings in comparison to their compadres in and around this race so far. Probably the guys that I would say that are on controller may have the higher wings in comparison to the guys that will be on the wheel, just purely the fact that they can at least turn a little bit more. But yeah, early doors here, Jake. Nova on top. I think kind of showing it to our championship leaders.
He is, and speaking of just quickly not being able to turn, Matty had lost his front wing in there somewhere. A lot of drivers on the first runs, well, as you can see, there aren't many first runs. I saw a lot of red mini-maps in the bottom right corner and a lot of red blinking flashing lights for drivers who should have been on laps. I think Toby's going to be the next one across the line. Indeed he is at the bus stop chicane. Miami, you said, has gone for another run. He did a 202 on his first lap, although the soft tyres really don't hang together all too well for a second run. 43.4 for Tope. Miami does abandon that second run, so he's going to stick with the 202. So first run down completely, and we've only got 7 competitive times on the board out of 17 drivers. So this track, I think it is a bit of a mistake generator. The track's very bumpy. You can bottom out in places. The curbs can suck you in and spit you back out as well. I found that a couple of times in D1. Due to my terrible driving ability, but I'm surprised at just how poor collectively these first runs have been. I don't think there's an excuse for only 7 drivers having managed to set a lap time.
Yeah, I'm with you. I am quite surprised that only 7 out of the 17 that we've got, or 8, yeah, I was going to say 8, but yeah, technically Miami's time's not really a proper lap. So I'm quite surprised 7 of the guys out of the 17 that are here have properly set a lap. And yeah, I would have thought it definitely would have been a lot more at that point. But I think our championship leader, Mr. Ariel Felipe, will be the first person to do his second run. We know what Nolan's like. He does want to try and get out as early as possible to avoid as much traffic as possible. But I think it might have been a bit too early because he might have a little bit of traffic as they're coming out of the pits. I can see one of the McLarens, I think that is Miami, making his way out of the pits, as well as Brent, as Nolan is just making his way up towards turn 1. Hopefully that Mercedes does stay out of the way. It does indeed, so yeah, that's nice for Brent. As he makes his way up Eau Rouge and Radion, is he going to be able to keep this flat out? It is quite easy flat out if you have the right setup. It does bottom out a little bit, but yeah, Nolan does it very nice, keeping it flat through there. DRS wide open for the first time in this lap of 2. Up towards the sector split, 900ths up on his time, so not a bad start whatsoever, as he then goes around out of the chicane. So yeah, that's Nolan's second run basically done and dusted, and I think Sweet Ross might be our first one to complete his second run, barring that he doesn't make any mistake.
I single-handedly blame you for that spin, for saying he was on a good lap. Felipe does have the stream up. He probably heard you himself, and you put the fear of God into the man, and he's gone. Well, the back of his car has overtaken the front, which I don't need me to tell you that doesn't normally happen. It's not meant to happen with a fully on car. Sweet Ross into Lefania chicane, a little less aggressive with the curb on the outside on the way in, as Nolan was, and then that's a really nice turn in Salo. Could have used a bit more of the curb on the exit, but 14.7 to the middle sector. Excuse me. That's a nice split time. This is going to be a very competitive lap time from Sweet Ross through the non-corner of 16, then Blanchimont up at turn 17 here. He's getting some inadvertent, tiny little bit of slipstream here from a Mercedes who only realised in the very last moment, just as Sweet Ross back to slam on the brakes, that I think he needed to get out of the way. And I think that was Brent. It was Brent. He's the only Mercedes here today. Brent, I don't think that was intentionally giving Sweet Ross slip, but he was caught napping a little bit there, and I think you saw a little twitch from him where we just had that moment. You can see the realisation where he's like, oh, poo, someone's behind me, I have to get out of the way. And Larkin goes onto the front row, a 43.2 for him. But Sweeros, that lap was mega into the 42s, a third of a second quicker than anyone else we've seen so far nearly. Here's the misspelled Oxide Nova, and he goes to a 42.957, 3/1000s up. Lifebout has gone invalid as Matty crashes out at Stavolo 2, just there. And that brings an end to his session. RJ's gone invalid on the second run. Their scream's invalid. Anyone else coming to cross the line? Cost Cap'n is on a 14.9. That's a tenth and a half slower than what Sweeros did. So we'll expect him around Larkin territory, but crucially for him, ahead of Ariel Felipe. What can he do? It's 43.0, goes P3. A nice effort from Cost Cap'n, covering from a bit of a non-first effort. Reservoir's invalid. Darry's way back. Brent is coming through sector 2, and I think that just about wraps up our second runs.
Yeah, Miami had a spin as he was exiting the chicane after the Camel Straight as well. 3 DNFs, by the way. Matty, as you said, out of Stavolo 2. That screen followed him as well, although I think he actually spun on the exit curb of Stavolo 2 because his car was planted on the right-hand side of the track. And Chris out of the exit of the chicane as well from the car after the Camel Straight as well. Miami's just come across the line to do a 53.3, so improved on his time by 10 seconds, but he still needs another 10 seconds to find if he wants to be anywhere near competitive. But as I said, he spun out of the chicane as Brent out of the final corner has now DNF. So we've had 4 retirements, and they're not meant to be either, but 4 retirements in probably the last 2 to 3 minutes, which is quite interesting to see. And yeah, obviously 3 of them haven't even set times on the board, so all Reservoir and Darry got to do really is just, at least set a time. And, Darry especially, considering that he's between the cars that have DNF. So, yeah, if Darry just at least sets a time, he'll be ahead of the cars that have DNF, but Screamer's there as well as, Topa's spun.
Yeah, we just caught that. He was already invalid, but he dropped it out of Malmedy, and now he's freewheeling down the hill. So let's go away from him, because he doesn't need that scream time. Lifebout's just had a spin at Lefania. He was on a lap as well, I believe, or he was on an in-lap. It's bizarre to spin on an in-lap unless he just took too much curb and sucks you in, spits you back out again. Felipe's gone out very early for his last run, so again he's gagging for that stream time, and we'll give it to him. Who are we to deny him? He's coming round the bus stop chicane, and he's going to start his lap, and he's got Lifebout, 64/1000ths of a second in front of him. That's his immediate target, but Cost Cap'n is a further 0.3 up the road as well. That looked nice for Nolan through La Source, but now he's got an age to think about his braking and his turning into Lecom at the very end of the Camel Straight. Again, tidy, not understeering through Radion. And let's see how he approaches this. He's going to be a bit more aggressive than he was the first time. First split, you want to be a 29.7. To 29.8 for Felipe, so perhaps he is running slightly higher wings. Very, very generous with his use of the curbs there, Felipe. There's way more commitment in that lap if he wants it, but he wants to just get a quicker time on the board, and we can forgive him that given his situation in the championship right now. He just needs to be there or thereabouts defending his championship lead. Towards Pouon now. How committed is he through here? It looks very sensible, this lap. There's no dramas, there's no little squirms or mistakes like we've seen a lot of drivers spinning left, right and centre, but Felipe just looks like he has looked all season, hasn't he, J. Cole? He just looks sensible. And that's not to insult him. He's a 10th and a half up through the middle sector. He just looks like he knows what he needs to do, and he's just being Mr. Sensible.
Yeah, just wants to keep the car on track, understandably so, doesn't want to try and take any more of a risk than he really needs to. He's now making his way up towards a bus stop chicane, braking just after the 100 metre board, maybe at the 100 metre board, chucking it across the first curve of the bus stop, and it's actually giving him a great exit out of the final corner, up to the line. It's 1,000 up ahead of Cost Cap'n, so yeah, very good time from Felipe, managing to get up ahead of his championship rival. He will hope will get in their heads, especially being 1,000 up ahead of Cost Cap'n. But Cost Cap'n out on an out and up at the moment. Lifebout just made his way out of the pits as well. Larkin has also come out of the pits himself. As I say, I think Luke and Larkin are actually out of the championship now, so it is literally just the top three that are left standing in this championship. So we'll see what they're able to do. Swede Ross is just about to start his final lineup. So that's Felipe's runs all done and dusted. Unless he rebuilds his energy and goes back up for another run, I don't think he's going to be able to. So we'll see what Swede Ross is able to do. As I say, I think he's going to be our first one to cross the line to complete his final flying lap. And at the moment, 3,000s behind pole. Swede Ross has been having a decent form of qualifying as of late. It's just the races has not really translated in there for him. Other than last week at Jeddah, where he did end up picking up third place in the race after, as I said, a very dramatic 3 wide to the line with Larkin and RJ. So we'll see what Swede Ross is able to do. Going up Rouge and Radion. DRS now wide open down the Kemmel Straight. As Jake said, 29.7 is where you want to be looking if you've got relatively low wings up towards the first sector split. It's 29.9, just about a tenth down on his time. Down through fourth gear. Again, not taking the curves like Felipe was, but in through fifth gear. Around Maudie and into the wall, and out goes Swede Ross. So that's him done for qualifying. P2 is going to be the best that he can get. Koskappen just starting a lap right now, going through the source. RJ will be our next one to come across the line as he's making his way up towards the first sector split. We'll see what both of the Red Bulls are able to do, because they look like they're trying to challenge it a little bit more as RJ goes very deep into Le Combe.
Yeah, that looks like lap gone for me. Completely missed the first part of Le Combe and then was so compromised. He had to take such a tight line through the second part, turn 6. And when you make that kind of mistake, the rest of the lap just starts to unravel from you. It does in my experience. Let's have a look at Oxide Nova, a provisional pole sitter. He's derating actually, so, well, not derating. He's red lights blinking, which means the ERS is turned off. So he's made a mistake because he must have turned it off briefly. Yeah, it is turned off, is it? I don't know. I saw the red light.
I think he turned it off. I think he turned it off just to happen.
Oh, well, that is sweaty from Oxide Nova. And I'll tell you what, maybe this is the end of qualifying, isn't the right time to say this, but I think Felipe couldn't be happier this man is in the league. He is someone with real proper pace who's going to take race victories away from Lifebout. Oxide Nova is the bow in Ariel Felipe's quiver he didn't know he needed, and I think he could be the man who inadvertently wins Felipe the championship, because he's keeping Lifebout away from pole position right now. Let's go on board with Lifebout coming up to Le Fagna as Arezipine improves P5. Oh, big snap there for Lifebout. We'll stick on board with him because he is the championship contender. Oxide Nova's coming around the bus stop chicane now. Does he lower the bar for pole position? He does by 0.2 per second, a 42.7. But look at Lifebout, he's up by over a quarter second despite that little snap through Le Fagna, and then the two non-corners of turn 16 and 17 to go, and then the bus stop awaits. You've got to spot your braking point. Does he attack the curbs like Felipe does, or is he going to keep it nice and measured? Tendency here, when you're on such a good lap, you just want to be an eager beaver on the throttle here and light up the rear wheels, and the car just snaps on you a little bit and you lose a few hundreds, but no risk of that flight out. But he only goes P7, a 43.1. He lost time in the final sector. That's the end of qualifying, because Dari has spun, I believe, at the last corner. He has indeed. Felipe was talking the talk in my DMs earlier about Lifebout, saying he's got it wrapped up, but on this evidence, absolutely not. He's gone on the missing list, and he's 4 places below the man he needs to beat.
Yeah, it certainly is. So that makes it a bit of an interesting qualifying. Oxide Nova, the newcomer, on pole with Swede Ross alongside him. Again, Swede Ross just feels like he's being robbed of these pole positions. He got it robbed last week from his teammate, and it's now been robbed again by the newcomer off the league. So Swede Ross really probably very annoyed at the fact that he's been second now twice in a row when he's had the opportunity of getting on a pole position as well. Nolan and Koskappen lining up on the second row of each other. Luke in 5th with Reservoir in 6th in the 3rd row. Lifebout down in 7th. He's got it all to do really in this race, with RJ lining up alongside him in 8th. Larkin's in 9th, Races in 10th. Miami in 11th with Pope in 12th. Scream in 13th, Dari in 14th. Got a lap on the board in the end. As I said, he just needed to do that, so he was at least ahead of Chris, ahead of Matty, and ahead of Brent, who all ended up DNFing in that qualifying session. Matty just looked like he could not hold the car on track whatsoever. Couldn't really see it properly from Chris and Brent's side, but yeah, Matty was really struggling from what I was seeing. I think Pullman might need to hopefully try and pull it out a little bit, and we'll see what he can do within the race. But Yeah, Oxide Nova and Sui Ross on the top row here, Jake. This is going to be a bit of a lengthy battle. I think it's off of that start between Felipe and Koskappen, of getting that better start if they're able to try and keep up with those top two, because they kind of look a little bit more of a class of their own, especially Nova, who's just joined the league. He looks like he's already solidifying himself to, well, I think Verstappen might be licking his lips that he might have another Division 1 driver for next week, potentially.
I'm really intrigued how this is going to go. We've not seen Oxide Nova race yet. Sorry, I was having to look at something. Did you say Oxide Nova up to D1 next week? Is that what you said?
There's a potential. There's a potential.
Well, Felipe best make the most of him this week then, wasn't he? Because I don't think he necessarily wins the title if it was a straight 1v1 with Lifebout without someone quicker than Lifebout there. I'm intrigued to look at fuel here. I just want to say, because you can underfuel here, and you can underfuel by about half a lap with safety cars, even more so as Luke does his business there off the line. So I want to see if anyone has actually, caught on to the trick there, but we can't see until they start the race apparently, which is very frustrating, because I was looking forward to see who had overfueled, who had underfueled, who was clued on to the strategy. Let's check the starting tyres before Larkin shouts at me in my DMs. Everyone's on hards, apart from Chris and Brent, who are 15th and 17th respectively on the medium. So everyone's going the same way. Stop lap, you're looking at around lap 12 for hard to medium. That's the ideal stint length. You'd expect 10 laps on the mediums, 12 laps on the hards, without any form of safety car or damage to interfere with things. You can, maybe, if you're feeling gutsy, hit lap 11 from the hards to the mediums if you want to get that undercut, or you may go long if you've had a difficult race, you had a spin and you're hanging out for a safety car, goal hanging as it were. But I think most people will be pitting from lap 12-13 is going to be our pit window, and everyone's on the same strategy, which is nice. I don't like it when people are on different strategies, especially the leaders, because we don't see the race fully take shape until the last 5 or 6 laps. Whereas here it's nice, everyone's on the same strategy, everyone's on the same tyre, same pace, like it's just a straight up race. I much prefer it this way.
That's true, but it can lead to DRS trains, which could be a slight nuisance. But yeah, I mean, I'm intrigued on how this is going to. I really am, because we don't know what Oxide Nova's pace is like. We know what Swim Ross can do in a race. There is a potential. I'm not going to lie. There's a potential of a bottle in there with him. There's a potential of a bottle in there with Felipe. There's a potential of a bottle in there with Koskappen, with Luke. We've seen it with Lifebout so far as well, as Luke just completely hops across the final chicane. Reza 5, we've seen that as well. These guys that are literally within the top 7, even RJ, top 8. I think you can count Larkin in that. Majority of these guys in this grid, there's a chance of a bottle, and I think it's just the person that doesn't for this evening is probably going to be the one that wins. Lifebout is going to be starting a little bit further back on his grid spot than normal. I think penultimate round here, Jake. I think this is where we might end up seeing where our champion ends up.
I think we'll see who's got the mettle to come through as a champion. It's Oxide on pole, Sweet Ross on second, Felipe and Koskappen behind them, Lifebout down in 7th. It's Lights Out around the way. Look like Felipe got a slightly better reaction than Oxide there. Resify and Luke forcing Lifebout onto the grass in turn 1. It's 3 wide for the leaders. Felipe runs into the lead. Sweet Ross has just ran clean out of road, and he's come on, and it's a 3 wide again between Oxide and Resify. It's leapt up to P2 here as they go into Eau Rouge, and Resify sneaks through into the lead, but he's a little out of off kilter, runs wide. Could it be 3 wide for a third time today as they're bumping wheels and trading paint all the way down the Kemmel Straight? Felipe, this start could not have gone better for him. Further behind, look at Koskappen and Lifebout side by side into Les Coms as Oxide forces Resify off the track, and then Resify returns the favour as they come through turn 6 at Malmedy, and down the hill it's sorted itself out a little bit. We've now got Larkin and Lifebout side by side into their pin. Larkin sneaks through. Rex passes Brent as Brent's had a bit of a shocker there. Miami's getting called up as well, side by side into No Name. Actually, no, Brent's not had a shocker. He's had a great start, but then there's contact between himself and he's out of the race. Chris goes round with him And Rex was involved as well. We've got a full safety car. Chris is missing his front wing. And let's quickly bring up the position change. But that, Jack, was a frantic, frenetic start, but it was a brilliant one as well. I think best first lap, the first sector I'd say we've had all season. That was breathless.
Yeah, it certainly was. So Nolan, very good start from him. Of course, having the inside and the source is not going to be easy for you to try and keep it 3 wide with everybody there. So tried to kind of make it a bit too wide. Sweetos completely run out of road, which meant that Reservoir then had the opportunity of running back through and got himself straight into second place. Very good start from the IRT drivers. So Sweetos ended up actually getting a position up ahead of Oxide Nova. Down to 4th goes our poleman. Kos Kaplan jumped up into 5th with Larkin going up into 6th and Lifebout dropping down keeping the position at the start, but probably could have made up at least 1 or 2 positions from that start as well. So he hasn't had a very good start. I think I also saw Chris. It was Chris and Brent that had made contact. Miami went into the back of Brent, which then meant that Brent ended up going around. Not Miami's fault whatsoever. He was just sort of a passenger in that. And for some reason the car didn't go. So Miami hit the back of Chris, which is why he's into the pit. Tope as well. I think might have also made a bit of hit the back of Brent. Tope may have also gotten involved within that contact, which is why they are both in the pits. Darry as well. I'm not sure what happened with Darry early on, but yeah, he must have obviously gotten caught up in that incident with those guys as well. But like I said, Nolan, what a start. He probably couldn't have hoped for anything better whatsoever. We said that Lifeboat was on a bit of a charge as of recent, but down in 7th position, it's not going to be easy whatsoever for him to try and make up a few of those positions on those guys out in front. I think he even said in his qualifying that he had a bit of a bottle going through there. As you said, he had a little bit of a slide in the second sector. So yeah, this is making this a bit. This is making it wide open. I think this championship now with Nolan out in 1st, Lifebout in 7th. I mean, life standings, he gets 25 points. Lifebout gets 6 points. Kos Kaplan gets 10. Brings Kos Kaplan back into 2nd in the championship. Lifebout goes to 179. Kos Kaplan goes to 182. And Nolan goes to 212. So it's a 30-point difference with, was it 37 points? 36 points, sorry. No, 37 points. That's all to play for next week at Brazil, which means that Nolan is going to have a massive advantage. I think all he needs to do is finish 4th in the sprint, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I mean, if you go into the last race, we can wrap it up in the sprint, then you're in very good stead. Yeah. Although I was in that situation in P2 last season, I am absolute mare at Abu Dhabi. Something I do want to take note of, though, I mentioned the fuel. Felipe is running 3 laps, a full 3 laps more fuel than Lifebout. Lifebout's on minus 1.25 here. Felipe is on plus 1.94. It's now over 3 laps extra fuel. That does make a difference to your pace, make no doubt about it. You can feel it in a league race short quality. You go from 7 kilos of fuel to 5 kilos of fuel. You notice a difference. Maybe not in terms of the feel of the car, but you'll see it in the delta. In the lap time. And Felipe, I'm surprised that I'm not necessarily surprised, but I think he's short-changed himself a little bit because he's going to make life harder later on. Reservoir was underfueled, I saw. Sweetos is overfueled. Oxide underfueled. Kos Kaplan is about evens. Larkin is now at plus a lap. Lifebout is doing a good job of continuing to burn his fuel. I think Lifebout's the one who's really clued on here. The problem for him, though, is that he's in 7th place and Felipe's leading. So you can have all the underfueling in the world, but if you don't have the track position, what does it count for? And as you said, bring it full circle, Felipe is very much on course right now, put himself in a position to win the championship with his eyes closed at Brazil. So, Lifebout, he may be underfueled, but he's got to do something about Larkin and Kos Kaplan in his much more immediate future.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think Brazil's even one of Nolan's better tracks as well. So, going in that final round, it would look like it's not anything but Nolan's at that point. Or sorry, it's no one else's but Nolan's championship after that. So Yeah, I think that's a bit of an interesting one. I think the other thing we also need to keep our eye out for is that constructors. Let me double check on what that is looking like, because if I'm not mistaken, the AlphaTauris can also win that for this evening. Was it 37 points for the winner next week, and a possible, if they was first and second and second, they pick up a total of, what's that?
65.
Yeah. 66, I think that is actually.
37 plus
29, isn't it?
Oh yeah, so I was thinking it was. Oh yeah, I was thinking it was 28. Ignore me. Safety cars in this lap. Who's your money on?
It's got to be our race leader. I mean, he had such a good start. He's got to try and time this right so that he's not giving Reservoir too much slipstream, but just enough so that it keeps the cars behind him at bay, so that it doesn't allow, you know, his championship contenders in 5th and 7th to make any sort of moves possible. I think Nolan might go as late as possible in towards turn 1. He might go to exit the bus stop, but knowing Nolan, he's keeping up with that safety car, so he's going to go as late as possible in order to get this restart underway. I don't think he has gone.
Oh no, I thought he had.
Is. Oh no, now he has.
Yeah, he went into the braking zone of turn 18, but he's so slow through there. It's such a slow corner. It's very hard to tell. You have to do a double take. Have they gone? Chris passes Taupe into turn 1, round the outside. That's bold if he can pull that off, but not. I don't think so. Oh no, he does. Taupe had a dodgy moment on traction. Felipe leads by half a second from Redspy. They're going to dump all of their errors and then some down the straight here. We'll see what it's like with the ERS. And Redspy is gaining on Felipe, but he's not gaining anywhere near enough Felipe's. You've got enough in hand. Yellow flag, that's Taupe at the back of the field. Has dropped it at Radion. Let's look back to Lifebout. I was wondering if you might see a suspect lunge from Luke into La Source, but no such dramas so far. The two did briefly swap places under the safety car, which I'm sure was a great irritation to the Haas driver, but he's hanging on to P7 nicely, sticking to the back of Larkin. Everyone's been very well behaved. Miami is the most hungry position. He's got a good run on Rex, but Puon is not an overtaking spot, but he's on medium tyres, which is why he's able to run so closely to the back of Rex, former IRT driver in this middle sector. And everyone, I think, will be very nervous not to slip a second down, because if you slip out of DRS here, you've got a big problem. As I found out in Division 1 there, and I'm just looking, have we got anyone close? No, it has been the complete opposite of lap 1. It's been immeasurably well behaved.
It has indeed, and Miami's now trying to go for it on Rex. He's using that ERS. Rex is using his ERS a little bit as well, down in towards Blanchimont. I don't think Miami's going to go for any sort of move, but maybe in towards the bus stop we might see it. Although Miami broke, it meant that RJ is now all over the back of the McLaren. Has broken a bit early to see if Miami was going to try and go for a move on the Alfa Romeo in front, but doesn't in the end. Chris as well, like you say, I thought he was going to almost go into the back of RJ, but Miami got a better run out of the final corner. Past Rex, now up into 11th position, but 1.2 seconds now behind Matty. Of course, on the medium tyres, it's going to be a lot easier to catch up to those guys out on the hards in front of him, but yeah, needs to try and keep up with those guys, especially with DRS being enabled on the next lap. Cost Kaplan all over the back of Nova, as Resify also just keeping tabs with Nolan for the time being. Outside Nova is using his ERS. He wants to get the move done. Sweet Ross down in towards the Lecombe chicane. Down the inside he goes. Sweet Ross kind of just gave up that position, said, here you go, you can have that, and that is him up into 3rd position. Back onto the podium is our newbie 4th Division 2, but Sweet Ross is not going to be giving that one up. I had a little look in towards Brussels. There's that screen going around out of Malmedy, and that is him down towards the back end of the field, joining his Williams compadre, who's just currently going through.
Oh, Reservoir's had a big moment. Reservoir nearly dropped it coming out of No Name, and that's left him right in the clutches, and he goes wide at Puon as well, of Oxide Nova now, who's going to pursue him, as we got the scream is out at No Name. That could be another safety car. It is another safety car, and if you're on the medium tyres, might you think about a pit stop here? Miami, RJ and Dari, they'd already pitted those guys, but that's a shame. We're about to get a 1v1 between Resify and No. That's just taken the wind out of my sails a little bit there. I was excited for that, but Resify just made a big moment out of No Name, and then compounded it by going wide at Puon, and Nova was right on him. Respo was having to use a fair bit to just keep him behind into Lafanya. Also, RJ passed Rex and then made a mistake at Malmedy. Spared his blushes. Respi couldn't get past. Respi comes into the pit lane. Maybe he hit the wall at No Name, and that was why he couldn't turn into Puon. That would make sense. And he's got damage from it. No, it's not.
I'll tell you what, Darry's done the right thing. Darry's the only medium runner that pit to go onto the set of the Hearts. Rex is coming, Reservoir's coming, and Darry, as you say, is making his way in. Hope is also coming into the pits as well. So Darry's going to try and go to the end, surely, on those hard compounded tyre. My only thinking also, could Reservoir have chosen a harder option on his, in terms of, when you do your tyre allocation at the start of at the start, could he have picked harder? Because if he has, surely we'd expect Reservoir to come back in to the pits at the end of this lap, chop on a fresh set of hards, go at the end, and he's already a pit stop ahead of everybody else in front of him.
He could. But my issue with that is, one, that the hards will be very bad by the end of the race. Compared to fresh mediums, or fresh mediums, they'll be awful. The hards can only really do 16 laps usably at tops, and that's what Reservoir's going to ask of them. Even more if he goes back onto the same set he started the race on. We will see in that regard, as you alluded to, whatever allocation he's picked. But the second one is the pit lane loss here isn't particularly great. If it was Singapore, or Silverstone, or Monza, where the pit, Singapore, Silverstone, or Imola, where the pit loss is upwards of 27 seconds, then it makes sense to get that stop out of the way and safety car. Here, it's only about 16 seconds. So there's less incentive to compromise the rest of your race by pitting under a safety car. So if he comes back in, I would have just followed whatever Felipe did, to be honest. I don't think Reservoir has done the right thing there by pitting. But was it 2 weeks ago I said Felipe made the wrong strategy call 3 times at Zandvoort, and he still managed to get a podium out of it? So what do I know?
True, I suppose, but all I'm saying is I'm expecting the rest of those medium guys, like all the IRT boys at the back, other than Darry, I'm expecting them all appear to go on to hards. That's what I think. If they've already compromised their strategy, especially Reservoir the most, if they've compromised their strategy that much already, you may as well just go full deep into it. And as I said, if he's got a fresh set of hards, great, he can take those to the end of the race, no problem at all. I say no problem. They will be quite dead towards the end, but they will get there. The same with Rex, he did the exact same thing. Reservoir isn't coming in, Rex isn't coming in, Darry is coming in though. So it's the polar opposite of what I said. The guys that were on the medium stayed out, and Darry came in on those hards. I don't get why. Hard mediums can't get to the end, can they?
Percentage-wise, they might be able to in D1. I started on hards around lap 10, I was on like 40-something%. So that's 10 laps on hards is 40%. Can you get 15, 16 laps of mediums on less than 75? I would say probably not, actually, thinking about it now. But, maybe they think, we've got to take the risk. I'm so confused why Reservoir did what he did. He would need... He's going to be very vulnerable. Yeah, he's going to be very vulnerable at the end of the race, is how I'd say. Because you're going to get some natural field spread anyway. So let's say that field spread is 8 tenths per car. He's going to end up around 10 seconds behind Felipe at best by the time Felipe pits. And Felipe's going to be on much better tyres come the end of the race, because Felipe's not going to pit for another 4 or 5 laps. So yeah, I from this position right now, I'm not seeing why Reservoir or even Rex or Topol or Darry have done that. There's a reason the top 8 have not come off their hards. And I wouldn't question their collective logic. Also, I would question my logic if I was Reservoir, that the collective wisdom of those 8 people is to stay out on hards. That's what I would do. But, what do we know?
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, if there's rain coming, and he's decided to chuck on mediums because they're going to be probably coming.
There's no rain. I heard from our sources.
Gotcha. Right, okay, that's fine. So, yeah, I mean, the other ones I'm surprised didn't come in, both Maui and RJ. Again, I know they started on the hards and they got damage in lap 1, and they could have gone back onto the hard to go to the end of the race. So, again, surprised they didn't come in. Again, no, they're probably thinking another safety car come out, because there's already been 2 safety cars in the space of 7 laps. Granted, it is the longest track on the circuit, so you know, it's going to be less likely that you'll be doing more laps when the safety cars are coming out as well. But Nolan almost taking the exact same approach on this restart. He's got Nova behind him this time instead of Resify. So we'll see when he does opt to go. And as you say, I think he has already gone just before the final corner. Nova has read this as well quite well. Sweet Ross once again hasn't been able to read it as well as before, as Larkin also all over the back of Koskappen in towards the source,
Sweet Ross,
as well as Lifeboat as well. Lifeboat getting overtaken by Luke. Luke has actually completely dived it on Lifeboat out on towards the gravel part, or not gravel part, sorry, out towards the tarmac of turn 1, and that means that Matty now goes past him as well. Lifeboat not too happy on that move with Luke, but Sweet Ross, yeah, very deep in towards turn 1, and now Oxide Nova all over the back of Nolan. I think this is going to be a lead changer, Jake.
I don't know where to look. Oxide Nova up the inside of Felipe, in contact between them into turn 6 up at Le Com, and that was a car crash waiting to happen right there. Lifeboat he's got to keep himself cool. He can't let Luke, which has the psychological benefit for them of RL of being in the same livery as Ariel Felipe, and I think that's just Lifeboat. That'll get in his head, that fact, and be like, oh, it's Luke, he's Nolan's teammate, he's doing it to stop me, blah, blah, blah. And he may be or he may not be. I don't think he necessarily is from Luke, but that, you see that weaving from Lifebout up out of La Source towards Eau Rouge, he wasn't happy. I think his frustrations directed squarely at Luke 05 HD here. And I think the fact that Luke is Nolan's teammate may just be getting in Lifebout's head on this lap. Matty has capitalised well, though he's only a quarter of a second behind Luke ahead of them, while Lifebout has dropped by about 4/10, and Oxide Nova's been dropped as well by Nolan by 3/4 of a second as well. Let's see if we've got any moves brewing on this lap. Larkin was close to Koskappen, which is what we were looking at before that battle manifested behind. 3/10 of a second for him, and Sweet Ross had that awful moment at turn 1. I'm not sure what happened, if he hit someone in the back. Matty now looking around the outside of Luke and towards turn 1. It's forcing the AlphaTauri a little bit deep. Lifebout sniffing for something as well, and Luke picking up the traction a little earlier, taking the higher line through 1. But Matty's got a run here up the hill, and Sweet Ross is looking very slow. I don't know, has he picked up damage perhaps on that? He had made contact into La Source on the last lap, because he's dropped completely off the back of Larkin. No moves happening on this lap, Jack.
No, it doesn't look as if at the moment. I saw there was a little bit of a switch between RJ and Chris down towards the source, but RJ managed to maintain that position. I think Chris, though, is looking a little bit racier than what the Red Bull is out in front of him, but yeah, I think Chris wants to try and get a bit of a move on, keep up with that hard runner train out in front of him, because otherwise if he gets dropped by him with these guys on a little bit on a bit fresher mediums, but their tyre life is probably almost at the same at this point, then yeah, he's going to be in a bit of a lot of trouble come towards the end of the race, potentially not even scoring any points if that is the way it's going to carry on. But
big snap for Chris, big snap for Chris in Lafanya, and look at Resify pushing him through the chicane there, and then gets a little wide into Stavlo as well. Another little bump between them. Eager Beaver is Resify today. He needs it, and Rajay's had a shocking exit out of Stavlo, and Chris has turned defence into attack here. He's blasted past the Red Bull. Is Resify going to try to do the same? He's on the grass around the outside of RJ into Blanchimon, excuse me, as they come towards bus up now. Tote picked up a penalty, and it's all Constantine up ahead of them, but that was an interesting couple of quarters there in the midfield.
Yeah, it certainly was. I was also just watching on board with Resify as he's going through Blanchimont. Tote went very wide out of it, and that's what gave him that penalty. So, yeah, Chris again. Sorry, no, that wasn't Chris, that was Sweet Ross. Massive bit of oversteer out of La Source, and now allows Luke and Matty all over the back of him. I think
Luke's gone.
One, but 2 places, as I say, though, Luke, he keeps it just about. He loses a position to Matty, but just about holds it on. Reservoir's gone around out of Radion, and that means that he's now lost yet another position, and that's again another full course safety car. Reservoir has got no front wing. He tried to make that strategy work. It's completely blown back in his face. He was second in this race at the start. He's now down in plumb last with no front wing.
He'll be ruining his life choices with Reservoir. I'll tell you what this means, though. I can't remember if he has run both sets of times. I think he has. This will mean Chris is the net leader of this race. I don't foresee a scenario where that top 8 stay out again. So Chris is your net leader. RJ is in net P2. Rex makes it P3. Well, actually, I say RJ. I'm on the assumption Miami is going to pit for his other set of mediums. I'd expect RJ to as well, actually, looking at it. 7 laps. Is he going to get 20 laps out of a set of mediums? Absolutely not. I think he'll be in. Miami will be in. But I think the 4 behind them, Rex, Taupe, Darry, well, not Reservoir because he's missed the front wing, but those 3, I think they'll feel like they've rolled the dice, and I think they're going to stick to it. Because why not? What have they got to lose? They're 12, 13, 14. So I think they'll stay out. Chris will stay out, which means we've got a Chris, Rex, Taupe, Darry front 4. I'm presuming everyone will come in. Felipe's in. Nova is in. Koskapen is in. Larkin is in. Sui Ross is in. Matty is in. Luke is in. He's going to get held. He's going to lose a place to Lifebout. I am positively convinced here. Chris is in. Miami is in. Taupe stays out. Darry stays out. And Rex is in. So it's just Darry and Taupe. And I'm going to look at Luke here. Let's see if he does get held. And Luke does get held very briefly because of his teammate coming in. Is that going to put Lifebout ahead of him? No, Lifebout's changing his front wing. So Lifebout's picked up wing damage. That was probably why he was so annoyed. So in that contact with Sui Ross and Luke, Lifebout picked up some wing damage. He goes now down to 14th. He's having the kind of race, Jack, that you said he needed to have for Felipe to have any chance of winning the title today, which we'd completely written off as a possibility, is now a possibility.
It definitely is, because now everybody else in front of them is they're on the fresher mediums. The only thing that's
they've got penalties.
Good for him, the only thing that's good for him though, is Reservoir stayed out, and he's got no front wing. I don't know why he stayed out.
I think Reservoir is consumed by rage right now. But I will just say this for the sake of making it known, is that if they were to cross the line at the end of this lap and that was the end of the race, it ends as it is, Lifebout is eliminated from the championship battle, or would be after 1 lap of racing, and those front 3 move 3 seconds clear of him. If he wasn't eliminated, he would be all but eliminated, Lifebout, with the position they're in right now. He needs big points, and he needs a world of pain to engulf Ariel Felipe for it to swing his way. I can't see how this does swing his way from this position, but then, who knows with League of Europe, it's in its nature. Koskapen, though, would, by virtue of being 6th, deny Felipe any chance of the title. He needs to be down in 10th if Felipe wins the race today, or 11th, sorry, if Felipe wins the race today, to keep to hand the title to the lad from Greater Manchester. But yes, that's the state of play in terms of the championship. In terms of the race, I'm very excited to see everybody overtake Reservoir, and absolutely no confrontation come from it whatsoever.
Yeah, I know you said there's not going to be any rain there, Jake, but it's looking a little bit grey, don't you think?
I do think Reservoir does pit. Oh, that's a shame. I do think, but also I trust our sources that it's completely dry. But then again, if they only looked at the icons and not the percentages, it's percentages where you've really got to look. Maybe that is why those people went mediums and stuck it out. I don't know. But then you'd think if that was the case, surely if rain was coming, RJ and Miami would have stayed out. Chris would have stayed out.
Sure.
If that was the case, is my thinking. But you're right, it is getting very cloudy and murky overhead as Q1 gets underway in Miami.
Yeah, it certainly does. So, yeah, we're going to have 10 laps of racing, again, subject to any other safety car. Rectify then goes to the back of the grid. Lifeout gets pushed up another position into 13th. Still not a points scoring position, but of course, Barry and Tope, I think you said, like you said, they took the roll of the dice. They're going to try and take these mediums to the end of the race. With obviously another safety car, it should be doable. With this one, of course, is out at the moment. As I said, 10 laps left on, or 10 laps of racing with that. Again, I think they've been on these mediums, actual racing laps. I think it's been 2 laps. So, of course, they still wear under the safety car, but not as much as it would be under normal racing laps. So, yeah, I think these mediums will now be able to get to the end. They'll be on the limit. They will finish on about 75% at this point. But, yeah, I think the 2 IRT boys, they've got to try and count their lucky stars in hopes that Nolan gets a penalty and hopes that probably Oxide behind them gets a penalty as well, because then at least they've got a good chance. And Tope, well, this happened back in Austria, didn't it, Jake? Back in Austria, Tope was leading this race, and it's again another similar scenario. He's now leading. He's got his IRT friend just behind him of Barry, who's starting in Division 1 this season, by the way. You know, he's sitting pretty behind him at the moment on the same strategy as him. Is he going to be able to try and run away from that Aston Martin behind him? In fact, it looks like Darry's the one that's trying to back up everybody, not Tope for some strange reason. But
Darry will give Tope a 3-second gap before the safety car comes in. You mentioned Austria. I wasn't there. I was on a train. But whatever Tope did at Austria, he's doing it again. But they are actually, this is collusion between 2 people who are in different teams. There's no reason for Darry to leave bigger gap, but I say that he closes right back up. Will Tope do what Felipe did and go into the braking zone of turn 18? You'd think on older tyres you're just best to go as late as possible and don't give them a chance to follow you, but he goes very early, so ignore exactly everything I said. Felipe will keep an eye on him as in his pursuits of IRT. Darry, Oxide staying close behind him as well, and I think at the back I saw Lifebout. I saw a Haas was looking close, but no, I didn't actually see anything of the sort. So round the source we go. We've got 10 laps to go, including this one. The first 13, first 12 have dragged a little bit with all those safety cars. We've got some racing once again, and Darry gets very out of shape through Eau Rouge and Radion. I think he'll survive just long enough though on this lap at least, with Felipe behind him. Behind them continues to be, on these restarts, that everyone's very well behaved. Perhaps this track doesn't lend itself to dicing away on the restart. I say that. Reservoir passes RJ just into Lecom there, but it was very civil overtake. And what are you seeing up ahead? Oxide Nova is very close to the back of Felipe.
It was actually on that overtake with RJ and Reservoir, as he was going across the curb in towards Lecom, had a little bit of a moment as Lifebound going down the inside of Chris in towards Brussels, so manages to get the move done on the Alpine. Reservoir, another penalty to his name. We're starting to see a common occurrence of this as well, Jake, because last week in Jeddah, he picked up, I think it was 12 seconds worth of penalties. So
you see that in Mexico
he's on another.
Well.
Yeah, I think it was a similar scenario with that. So Reservoir is having penalties galore in Division 2 this season, and again, there's been a massive bottle as Matty as well trying to go for a move on Sweet Ross as they make their way up towards Blanchimont. Matty's going to have the outside for Blanchimont. Sweet Ross is going to have the inside, both using the ERS to see who holds on to one another. Sweet Ross is going to have the inside, gets forced out, does the Ferrari. Not much that you can really do going too wide in towards Blanchimont. Up in front though, Oxide is just chilling behind. Felipe side by side going through the bus stop chicane. Oxide had the inside, Felipe had the outside, but got the better traction out of that, and Nolan's now trying to put pressure on Darry in towards turn 1. He dives it up the inside of the German. A little bit of contact between the pair of them. Oxide Nova is now putting an immense amount of pressure on Felipe. He wants to try and get in front of the other Aston Martin, because Tope is starting to run away from the rest of them now, and Koskappen is all over the back of the Aston Martin. They're both so close, all 3 of them so close to each other. Oxide's using his ERS, Nolan's using his ERS, but it looks as if Oxide might have a little bit lower wings. Now going to try and go down the inside and towards the Lecom chicane. Nolan is closing up to the back of Darry, closes the door, does the AlphaTauri, maintains that position, very nicely done. Larkin is now trying to see if he can go for any sort of move on the Red Bull in front of him for what would be a net third position with those two out in front having those penalties, but doesn't make any sort of moves, it's now starting to get a bit more aggression here, Jake.
Lifebout is the one making moves right now. He's edging, finessing his way past Chris at No Name. Up front though, that is really, really compressed. I think Felipe could not be in a more uncomfortable position here. He's got someone who is a second a lap or so probably slower than him in front, and he's got someone who's probably a second a lap quicker than him behind. This is a very comfortable situation as Oxide Nova gets a bit out of shape through Lefania, and that invites Koskappen for a bit of a whiff of fourth place there as they come through Stavilo, and Oxide maybe just has to calm himself down a touch as well. They're all running nose to tail as Sweetboss has a moment on the exit, second past Stavilo, and now Matty's going to try around the outside, possibly of Bonchimon. Again, no, he's not. He's cut off as Lifebound now does go around the outside of Rex there towards Blanchimon. So Rex up into P11, and that's 2 points for him. It's not anywhere near enough though from what he's right now. It's Miami up the inside of Luke, and look at that opportunism from Lifebout. He turned a Miami attack on Luke into a Lifebout attack on Miami, but Miami's got the traction out of the last corner as Felipe passes Dari, goes deep into turn one, and Dari will drop to third place. And Dari, is he going to let his teammate go here? His stand-in teammate? No, he's not. They're going to fight, go wheel to wheel into Eau Rouge, and Oxide does not fancy that fight one bit. He has to concede the place, and then they're all having scruffy moments through top of Radion, and is Dari going to have a go back at Felipe here? He is, on the older tyres. Up the inside goes the German into Lecom, and we've got a breathless battle here. Felipe's not going to give this up. He knows he's got better tyres. He can't really afford to get caught into this battle again, but that, as you say, beautiful is the word. Well measured from Felipe. He's still under attack here, and look at Oxide. He's now going up the inside of his teammate. We've got a yellow flag. Reservoir's out of the race. Could that be a fourth safety car of the day? The two Aston Martins squabbling. It is a fourth safety car, and Felipe will be oh so grateful he got that move done when he did. He's now got Dari between himself and Oxide Nova. Is anyone going to come in for softs here as Rex briefly overshoots Lifebout? I don't see a point necessarily, but we have 6 laps to go at the end of this one. Sorry, 7 laps to go at the end of this one, and we've got our fourth safety car of the day.
Yeah, fourth safety car. I can't believe that already, and Spa as well, which is quite a surprise to be honest with you. But yeah, Reservoir now out of this race. There was some interesting stuff going on though at that final corner, or in the final chicane, shall I say. Dari and Felipe were both side by side pretty much through that and the whole of the first sector. Felipe then just, wanted to make sure that corner in the source was his. In towards turn one, and broke a lot later than what Dari did. Managed to get the traction as well and kept that position in the end. But yeah, very well managed. As Tope and Dari are both in, so promotes Nolan now into the race lead, with Oxide Nova behind him and Koskappen in third. I think Nolan was probably hoping that those two would have stayed out because it kept a car between himself and Oxide Nova, but now it means that Oxide Nova has still got another shot at fighting Felipe for the race lead. As they all catch up to the safety car. Tope and Dari going on a set of the softs, as well as Chris, as well as RJ. Smart thinking. They haven't really got anything else to lose, so thought, why not? May as well go for it. But a big implication with that now means that Lifebound goes up into 9th, and it means that this championship will definitely, because even though Koskappen's in 3rd, will definitely be going over to Brazil, unless both of those two crash out of Lifebound and Koskappen, and Nolan wins in this race tonight. Yeah, I think it's going to be the case that this championship is definitely going to Brazil, but it's not going to be an easy feat for both Koskappen and Lifebout, and Nolan's just trying to do everything he can to make sure he is having a comfortable championship lead going in towards Brazil, into the sprint and into the feature race for next week.
I think if we stay like this, his lead stands at 31 points. He would have to not turn up to race, I think, to lose the championship in that position, because D2 is so competitive. Koskappen would need to win both races, or at least win the race, and I think finish 4th or in the sprint, or so 5th in the sprint. So yeah, I think from where he is right now, this is Felipe's title, and next week will be his coronation. And have to get a little reference to his Madge, Charlie III, in there, of course. I say that to a league of people who give absolutely zero flying Fs about the monarchy of the United Kingdom. Neither do I, to be honest, but I still watched it, because, why wouldn't you? Is safety car in this lap? No, it's not going to get another lap. And that means we've got another 2.5 minutes to fill, Jack. Ugh. What's happening in Q1? I won't spoil it for anyone listening along with us live who wants to watch it later. All I'll say is you've not missed much. Who wins this race? I'll ask you that. Who wins this race?
I think it'll be our new guy, Mr. Oxide Nova. I think he's gonna get the move done on Nolan because he was looking so racy all over the back of him on that safety car restart. Of course, he had the two RT boys in front of him, which meant that Darry could put a bit more pressure on Nolan to then Oxide Nova have a bit more pressure on him, to put a bit more pressure on him. Sorry, with Oxide Nova, shall I say? Koskappen, he's made his way up in the field, which is good to see, and make his way onto the podium. I just don't think he's going to get past these two guys out in front of him. I think these two are just they are much faster than what Koskappen is at in third. It's just I feel like Nolan might end up getting passed by Nova, and Nova's just going to be able to hold on with that. I think in these final 5 laps that we're going to get a race in once Chris and RJ both catch up. I think they are going to be able to. I think Nova's going to be able to hold on. I think he's going to get the move done on Felipe. Probably when the DRS gets enabled on lap 20, I want to say 21, and we'll just hold on to it. He's got much faster straight line speed than what the AlphaTauri does, and in this game it's not exactly the easiest to overtake if you're running relatively high wings. So I think Nova gets him down the camel straight and holds on ahead of the AlphaTauri, but Nolan is going to put up a good fight. He just needs to make sure he's not fighting too hard to the point where he then gets spun around or drops it, and it basically helping Koskappen and Lifebout, because as you say, he's 15 points in front of Koskappen and 14 in front of Lifebout. So one mistake from Nolan, this championship into Brazil, they could be on even points. As I think we will have the safety car in.
I am here. I was just drinking some milk. Milk, so nutritious, guys. Drink milk. It's the best drink in the world. Unless you like chocolate, of course. As you said, safety car in this lap. So, you're saying Nova wins this race, he gets the move done in a couple of laps' time. I think Koskappen's going to have a bit of a problem here with Larkin. I think Larkin, he's been bottled up for most of this race, has the former D2 champ and the head organiser of F1. But he's been quietly quick, I think, all the way through. And I think he's got a little bit of latent potential in that McLaren that he can exploit. I think he could spring a surprise. But also, it's a late safety car in LOE, Jack. I love these things. They're the absolute best, because everyone drives like a maniac. And Felipe has gone.
Yeah, so safety car restart, he has gone. He's not had the best bus stop chicane. Nova has been able to close up on that bus stop chicane. Again, though, I think after that part, or after the second part of that chicane, though, Nova's managed to get away ever so slightly. Ross sticking to the back of Matty like glue, but not going to have any sort of moves done. It's the soft runners at the back. I'm intrigued on what they can do for the remainder of this race, as Luke actually gets the move done on Ross. So I think, did he have an oversteer moment out of the first corner?
He did. Miami completely followed him as well, which has put Lifebout right onto the back of the McLaren. Look at that run he's got over the top of Radion, and we'll see how aggressively Miami wants to defend as Nova breezes past Felipe. Felipe didn't want to fight that at all. He's happy to just tuck in there, didn't use as much of the DRS as he could have done. Further back, where were we? Oh, Miami has been turned round by Lifebout, and that could be very consequential for the championship in the stewards room. We didn't see what happened, but turned round there, Miami, in another wheel-to-wheel battle. There's been drama involving him, and you said, what has happened?
It was Chris, Darry and Rex were going 3 wide into Brussels after Malmedy, which was quite interesting. Chris goes past Lifebout, now up into 9th. Lifebout's down to 10th. And he's really struggling because Darry is now closing up to the back of him as well. Lifebout, I don't know what is going on with him, but he's not comfortable. I wonder if Lifebout's got on another bit of damage somewhere, because he, where he made that contact with Miami, I think he might have damage, to be honest with you, Jake. And I think Lifebout, as you say, I think the steward's implications, because Nolan's going to be messaging Miami straight afterwards, saying to try and report whatever it was that he had done. I think it's. I think Lifebout could be in a world of trouble even after the race has finished, as there's yellow flags.
Matty.
That is Matty, who's dropped it out of the final corner. So the poleman once again having another spin around the Spa de Francorchamps, and now 4 more laps left to go. Nova still leading it. Felipe's in second, Koskapin in third, Larkin all over the back of the Red Bull. I think, Nolan is really hoping Larkin can put some sort of pressure on the Red Bull out in front of him, but just on that straight line speed, just look at it. He's not even using ERS, and he's getting away from the McLaren as well, so Koskapin running probably lower wings than expected. Chris goes for the move on top and gets up into 7th position. He's now got his teammate out in front of him, and Chris, again, still a contender for a top 5.
Actually, it's Felipe that's running the lower wings. He was 3.32 at the end of the straight, 3.29. For Koskapin, as Matty goes walkies again, this time at turn 6 and 7, and he drops to P13 and just slowly comes back to the track there. Lifebout may have settled himself down a little bit. He's on course of P8, that's not really good enough for him. Chris picks up a penalty, that makes it P7 for Lifebout right now. But he's got a 2-second gap, even if he gets through that traffic. He's got a 2-second gap between Luke and Larkin, which will be insurmountable for him in the 3 and a bit laps we've got to go. Koskapin's actually got an ERS advantage as well over Felipe. Felipe doing everything he can to stay in Nova's in Nova's, burning like crazy as well as Chris and Swiros battle away the 2 Alpines there into Blanchimont. And Lifebout will be hoping they can crash into each other around about now, but there's no signs of that. So on to lap 20 of 22 we go. They come around the bus stop for the 4th last time today. DRS is now enabled as well. And who's winning in the DRS stakes? 32 for Nova. It was about 20 for Felipe and about 43 for Koskapin in the forward braking zone of turn 1. And then they're going to let the cars go up the hill, and Felipe, with those lower wings, has he got enough in his pocket that he can close up to the back of Oxide Nova, who's not using too heavily to defend down the straight? But I think we're in a holding pattern just for now, Jack, and we'll see. Anything that comes is going to come in the last 2 laps. Felipe closing up to within 2 tenths, but not close enough to nab a race victory.
No, it certainly isn't, and I think Larkin's also hoping that Nolan can get a 1-second gap ahead of Koskapin, so he has the opportunity of getting himself on that podium. Rex has gone for a spin out of turn number 1. Darry picks up a 3-second time penalty as well. I think that was out of the exit of Malmedy after the Lecombe chicane. Chris is all over the back of Luke and sort of let by his teammate on the last lap just as they were approaching Blanchimont. I think just so his teammate can try and drag him up as much as possible. Gap between Chris and Lifebout though is about 2.5 seconds, so Chris needs to get the move done on Luke as Darry's just having a spin at the exit of Huon, but Chris needs to get the move done on Luke ASAP in order to try and build up that gap ahead of Lifebout. And I think he's got the opportunity here just before it gets towards Blanchimont. Luke lagging back a little bit means that Chris now jumps up ahead of him, up into 5th. Of course, with the penalty, he's going to drop down, but he wants to try, especially for Felipe's sake, probably hopes that he can stay up ahead of Lifebout in terms of positioning after that 3 seconds is applied at the end of the race. 2 more laps left to go. Oxide Nova is leading it. Rex has gone for a spin out of the Lafania chicane, and Oxide Nova is still leading at the moment. Nolan though, he's now being closed up by Koskapin behind him. Koskapin, I think, is now licking his lips seeing that Nolan is starting to drop off a bit more now behind Nova. I think if I'm Nolan in this position, I think I'd just be content finishing second and up ahead of Koskapin and Lifebout, because I mean, if he's going to finish, I'd rather finish up ahead of him. But even if it's not winning the race, it's still not necessarily a bad thing whatsoever. As Luke and Chris were again very close to each other, but just manages to hold on, does the Alpine. But yeah, if I'm Nolan, I'd be happy sitting ahead of him as Lifeboat picks up the penalty. That's going to be huge because now he's not going to get the jump on Tope or Chris, and he's now actually going to get jumped by RJ. He's not also going to be jumped by Miami because Miami's 8.5 seconds behind him, but yeah, Lifeboat now going to be losing another position because of that penalty. As I say that though, RJ picks up the penalty, so that's now null and void.
Yeah, Lifeboat's going to come away from today with 4 points, and Felipe with 18, which means Felipe's lead over Lifeboat will be 28 points, if my mental maths is correct, which would effectively all but eliminate Lifeboat. You would need a bizarre turn of events at Brazil, really. I think Felipe's main concern now will be Koskapen, because Koskapen won at Brazil last season finale, penultimate race, I believe, last season. So he knows that's a good track for Koskapen. I think Felipe will be very wary of giving up any points here as we come on to the last half of the race. I think he's done what he needed to do because he stayed within a second of Nova, and that was all he needed. Koskapen, though, has a little more ERS to use than Felipe does, and he may as well let it go now as they're 4 tenths separated as they come up the hill, but the DRS that Felipe's got completely neutralises anything. The red light's blinking away. BenJS or Koskapen will close in, but then as soon as he starts to derate as well, that's where it caps out, and I think that may be that, unless we see a mistake for any of our top 4.
Yeah, no, it certainly will be, yeah, but Oxide Nova, after, joining the league, did Division 3 comms for this evening with good old school 3000, and, coming into this Division 2 race for tonight, his first race in the League of Europe. It's looking like that this is going his way. He's still got 20% left to play with. Both second and third are sitting on around 10% of ERS. Larkin's still sitting pretty on 40%. He needs to use that as they make their way up towards Blanchemont to see if he can go, snag a podium position off of the Red Bull in front of him, which is very doable. That is for certain as well. It's very doable. But yeah, Oxide Nova, I take a bow. On your first race of the season, even though it is the penultimate one, took pole position for this evening, had a bit of a rough start, dropped down in the 4th, and it's looking like he's going to be able to take the win for this evening, Jake.
It's certainly looking that way, isn't it? It's going to be an LOE debutant victory, and probably someone who we'll see in D1 next week who has a more of a driver shortage. Lifebout gets an extra point. He passes Tope on the run to the last corner, but it's going to be Oxide Nova who takes a victory here, the penultimate race of the season at Spa-Francorchamps, but all eyes will be on Ariel Felipe, who edges ever closer to that D2 championship he has craved for so long. Koskapen completes the podium. He keeps Felipe in touching distance. The gap between those guys is now 18 points, heading to Brazil, where we have a sprint race to come. Larkin took 4th. He'll be a bit frustrated. I think more didn't come his way in that race. Luke's 5th. But after some contact with Lifeboat that we didn't see, that I think Lifeboat was particularly unhappy about. Chris 6, Sweetross 7. Lifebout is 8, finishes with no front wing. RJ 9th with that late penalty, and Tope completes the top 10. That was enjoyable, even if it was littered with safety cars. We spent a good half of that race almost under safety car. And we only had 11 or 12 laps or so of racing action. But it was good fun, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, it certainly was. And I think this is definitely going to be a very interesting final conclusion to to this game for us in League of Europe, because this is our last season in this game. The new one comes out on the 16th of June or the 13th of June if you get the deluxe edition. But yeah, for the final round, of course, we're going to have the sprint race around Brazil, and then also the final feature race as well. I've got to say, I wasn't expecting Nolan to be still leading this championship. He had a very strong start, kind of dropped off in the midpoint, and he's starting to pick it back up a lot more now, which is good to see. Oxide Nova, though, as I say, on his debut, taking the win. Nolan in second, Koskapen in third. Again, as you say, an 18-point difference going into the final race of the season. Larkin's in fourth with Luke in fifth, Chris in sixth, Sweeros in seventh. Chris also picking up the fastest lap of the race from 15th as well. Very impressive race from him. Lifebout down in 8th position. He is going to be kicking himself for that. He only picks up 5 points, which means that he is now 27 points behind Felipe going into Brazil. So again, as you say, very sort of minimal for him to take the championship for this season. RJ in 9th, Tope in 10th, Miami in 11th, Darry picking up the final points for this evening, Rex in 13th, and then our non-finishers of Matty, Resify, Scream, and Brent. And I think, Jake, I think you said this the other day, this might be our final comms for the season, because I'm not here next week.
And I'm watching the Eurovision Song Contest. So, I think that may well be our final comms. If there's no one to stand in, I will do commentary next week. Absolutely. You can count on that. But if there is, you'll be in the safe hands of some other people or other person next week. I wonder if we could get just a live feed from Felipe and Koskapin, and that would be our commentary, because that would be very entertaining. If I am here next week, I'll make sure we get some pre-race interviews in with Felipe and Koskapin and Lifebout, if they're all agreeable as well. Otherwise, we'll get a post-race interview with them next week. I know Felipe is desperate to be interviewed every single week, and he's back on the podium this week. But Miami qualifying beckons me. So we're going to wrap up the stream there. Thank you for tuning in. Been an absolute pleasure as always. We're going to end the stream at 81 minutes just about. And thank you, Jack, for joining me. Thank you for joining me all season. And I'll thank myself for joining you. It's been a pleasure. Our second full season of commentary together. I've had an absolute blast. And hopefully we'll see each other next season. Thank you for tuning in, everyone. And